This is the meeting of the Community Preservation Committee, scheduled for April 7th, 2021. We're conducting this meeting remotely, and as such, pursuant to the governor's emergency orders, I will read a prepared script concerning the open meeting law. I'm Peter Pingator. I'm the chair of the CPC. Members, when I call your names, please confirm that you can hear me, and I'll do the same with staff. I know that Paul Albert is here. Paul, can you hear me? Yes, okay. And Joe Barnes? Here. Artie Crocker is not here yet, okay. Bob Dermody is not here yet. Laura Dorfman? Here. Okay. Chris Gersel?
Is here.
Okay. And Penny Kirk?
Here.
Rick Zimbone?
Here.
Okay, and the chair present. Staff, Karis Lustig?
Here.
And Kristen Wright?
Here.
Okay. This is the open meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. It's being conducted remotely pursuant to Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the COVID-19 virus outbreak. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the CPC is convening by Zoom app. As posted on our agenda and on the town's website. The public can identify how they can participate in this webinar by reviewing the posted agenda. The meeting is being recorded. Some attendees are participating by video conference. Please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and you should take care not to screen share your computer, and anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All of the meeting materials that we have been provided, members of this body, are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted by the chair. And the public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We're going to turn to our first agenda item, and I'll note the ground rules, which will be that I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they have concluded their remarks, I'll ask each member of the committee in alphabetical order whether they have comments or questions. Before you speak, let's make sure that on the record you are identified either by me or by yourself, and try not to talk over each other. And so therefore wait until the chair yields the floor, or people have a natural break in their voice before anyone else speaks. Each vote will be taken by roll call vote. Chairman's updates. Okay. Chairman's updates, what I'll do is there were a couple of questions. I think they really kind of boiled down to two that came up in connection with our review of the financials, and it centered around attachment C to the March 15th, 2021 memo of our finance director, Dave Davidson. The two questions that are kind of interrelated were the debt service allowance of 70% of surcharge. And the question was, shouldn't that be 60% in light of the fact that we were appropriating funds to community housing, the community housing bucket that essentially was doubling. I guess the response from the finance director is, I suppose you could do that. But more importantly was the question that I think the related question that Paul Albert raised, which is, well, does the unused allowance include the amounts that were dedicated pursuant to the 22% percentage. And so the answer is no. So we have 70% on debt service. The 70% of surcharge for debt service allowance kind of matches up with the fact that that column that says unused allowance does not include the additional 11% that we anticipate appropriating to community housing in the next several years. So when looking at that column, unused allowance versus what's available for a proposed Emery Grover funding at $6 million, you should calculate in roughly about an additional $350,000 a year. That as a committee, at least for this year, we're thinking that it's going to go into that bucket for the next several years. Okay. So I think that answers all of those questions. But that kind of exhausts my knowledge on those questions anyway. So if there are any other finance questions, you can write them down, save them, email them to me, and I think we're gonna have another meeting before we town meeting. Okay. So that's my announcement. So now tonight, what we're going to do is discuss each of the applications, review them, and then take a vote or otherwise file motions related to them. The next item on the agenda is discussion and vote, and it says review of input from public hearing and select board and finance committee. So I think that what we could do is I could speak generally about the finance committee and the select board on each application. And you were all here on the public hearing, so you can ask questions about that. And I think that makes sense of how we should proceed rather than give like a sub-summary about all 9 of them. We'll just handle it one at a time. So the first one up is Emery Grover. This is FY 2201. Emery Grover renovation addition project option 3, rotated. We've had a lot of discussion and we've done a lot of work on that. And as it stands now, what we had discussed was agreeing to fund the request of $1,475,130, in the amount of $370,000. We had received information that the town would be having a special, through the town meeting special warrant, that the balance of that amount, this approximately $1.1 million, would be sought, I think, through free cash, but on the town side. So the full amount of the request would be funded. Where we left off, and it was good that we actually had this discussion last week, was where we left off was, okay, what about the issue of the proposed funding of construction? So that was the other question that you left me with, which was, can we find out some additional information about that? And I think the short answer is we don't have any additional information about that right now as we speak. So there may be additional information that we learn between now and our next scheduled meeting, which is the 21st. But as it stands now, there's a request for design funding, and there is no plan in front of us or that's been presented to us for how to finance construction. So let's have the discussion, and I think we could go, because this is kind of a topic that I think everyone wants to weigh in on, or a application that everyone wants to weigh in. Let's go back, revert to form, and go alphabetical. Okay, we'll go in alphabetical order, and we'll start with Paul Alpert. Paul Alpert, questions, comments, motions.
I have no questions or comments at this time. I'll wait to hear from everybody else before we look at motions.
Okay. Joe Barnes, questions, comments, or motions? Joe?
I mean, I will stand with the comment that I made at the last meeting that I think we need a commitment from the other side to be sure that we're going to spend our money wisely. So I'll wait with, as Paul said, wait to hear what the rest say.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Durbin.
I am here. Let the record show, please.
Oh, good. All right. Do you know approximately when it was that you arrived?
It would have been 7:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay. Excellent. Okay.
Eastern Daylight Time, I would hope.
Oh, excuse me.
It's Eastern
Yes.
time. But if
I
you
want
want
to accept Paul's friendly amendment.
otherwise, yeah. Okay. All right. Great.
So I echo my colleague Joe's comments. I think you all know I'm in favor of finding a way to save this building, I think for various reasons. And my hope or sense is that the town finance committee and select board understand our position on how we approached funding the design portion. But, you know, you got to meet us some part of the way to understand that this will be paid. We can't probably afford the whole thing from what they would request, but I'd like to keep pursuing it with the idea that we find a way to use CPC money wisely, but to save this building.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. All right, Laura Dorfman.
Just a question. If the answer to that question is not known by the time we have to present this, do we make a decision that we're just going to approve this and cross our fingers that soon we'll know what the construction piece looks like? And if that takes a really long time, what happens to the committed funds we have for design?
Okay, so that's going to be a personal decision probably by each committee member, because there's probably going to be a motion on the floor regarding that, a motion before the committee regarding that. And so, so what was the question? And maybe Paul can help me out here, but what was the
let's say it just takes, like, for whatever reason, a while for it to get sorted out, the construction side, the cost, maybe there's a vendor issue, I don't know, right? And so we're just sitting here, we've allocated these funds. Do these funds just now, they have to sit there until this thing gets sorted out in terms of the other phase of the project?
Well, I suppose that you could do that, but it probably wouldn't be something that the committee would vote to do.
So, so kind of what you're saying is it would be best if we had the information on the construction before the town meeting vote.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of anyone, and I don't want to speak for the committee, but I think that we may want to, what Barnes and Zimbone said last week was, no, we want some information before we vote as a committee.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And then Paul, you had your hand up. I'll let you jump out of order.
Well, yeah, I had my hand up because we're voting for design funds. And it seems that the town doesn't know what they're going to do about construction until they get the results from the design review that we're funding. They may get a report that says, oh, this is going to cost us much more money than we anticipated, so they don't go forward, or they find other ways of financing it, or, you know, that's going to be in next year's warrant.
I think we're
without the design review first, and that's what they need to fund now.
I don't know that actually is what the money for design is going to be used for. I think that if you listen to the presentations pretty carefully, they have baked in contingencies related to renovating the building. And they've told us this is the amount of money it's going to take to design a gut renovation and a box behind it. That's what we're voting on, not whether or not we can build it and how much it will cost. We're voting on the design funds.
Right. So what is it exactly that people want to hear before we vote for design funds?
Well, the next question, okay, all right, we're debating, all right, here's what we're doing. You're getting ahead of us. You're getting ahead of the process, okay? So I think you should save that debate, if you will, because I feel pretty confident that there may be a motion to continue this. So let's hear from everyone first, okay? So now we're through Laura Dorfman, Chris Gersel.
No real big questions at this time, but I do have to echo Mr. Alpert, what he was saying of it's almost like a chicken or the egg kind of thing of you can't get to B unless you know what A is. And we kind of have an estimate though of what B is. I mean, because those builders, they're within reason to know where it's going to come from. Like I doubt there's going to be a double of a cost to build the building. But I do see the point of if we do fund design funds and then the town or the school committee or whoever it might be can't come up with the construction funds, we have now just, for lack of a better term, wasted money to design a building that is just going to sit there for how many more years?
Right.
So I see both sides of the argument.
That's
discussion, excuse me.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, you've actually argued both sides. There you go. That's the nub of the issue. All right, Pennycook.
I'm with Paul. I'm wondering, and Chris, it's a chicken and egg thing. And I think there's a sense here that, you know, let's go ahead and do it because we know we're going to find the money somewhere.
Okay.
And I would give myself the latitude of saying, because I'm on this committee, that I think the building next door is a more handsome building, and it just so happens that's because my father designed it.
Okay.
May I just say for all of you who are so solidly in my corner, if you live in precinct C, I'm up for re-election for town meeting. Please vote for me.
The paid political announcement.
Yeah, is campaigning,
We're all
is
getting
campaigning
a little
allowed during this
squirrely,
meeting?
Okay, Rick Zimbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't want to go out of turn, but I'm not sure if anyone followed what the Finance Committee did after our discussion when we appeared before them on our projects. But the Finance Committee had a subsequent discussion about capital planning in the town. And Emery Grover became a significant part of that discussion from the Finance Committee's perspective. And their approach was that we need to, as a town, we need to identify what our priorities are. And that really has to start with the school committee. And the school committee has a bunch of projects that they're being teed up. One of which is obviously Emery Grover. The next one is Mitchell School replacement. And then further, there's additional work on the Pollard Middle School that is going to be required. So there was a lot of discussion at the Finance Committee afterwards about we really need to get together with the other powers to be in town, and let's start by talking to the school committee and the administration of the school department. So the liaisons for the Finance Committee, after our meeting with them, were going back to talk with the school administration just about this. And they were proposing putting on the table, and it kind of started with the discussion during our Finance Committee meeting on the topic, about whether we could, as a town, postpone the construction on Emery Grover. And basically because all you'd be doing, in essence, as far as the timeline is concerned, is you're going to plan on moving school administration out of the Emery Grover at such time as the Hillside School is vacated by the fire department, which they anticipate to take place in the next year or so. And so you're moving temporarily school administration from Emery Grover, as it is now, into the Hillside School. They have to do some work on the Hillside School. But then what they suggested is that they postpone action on, they were going to present the argument that they should postpone action on the Emery Grover building until such time as the town can sort through the priorities for the capital plans that they have going forward. And they felt they needed to do that. So I don't know where that stands, but that's where the Finance Committee was headed after our discussion. And I'll once again reiterate my argument that I made at the last meeting. We don't have to vote on this tonight. and run it up or down. We still have a meeting scheduled on the 21st of April where we could vote on this particular article. We just got an email earlier today from the moderator that indicated that we have until the 26th to post the presentations on the website. So the 21st gives us plenty of time to make a decision to go forward or not to go forward once we have additional information. If the other powers to be haven't decided what they want to do by the 21st, then I would agree, we have to put a stake in the ground somewhere. But the question is if we deferred this, what does it do to our financing plan? And if this project is deferred, it pushes the major expenditures on Emery Grover on our financial plan down the road a few years. We've paid back more of the debt service that we have on Town Hall. And so that allows us more room on that chart as far as the 70% threshold. That
Okay, all right, we're getting well beyond the application and the deliberation at that point, right? So we don't.
I'm just,
Okay, fine.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I was just trying to cover the background before
Okay.
I make a motion to defer this until the April 21st meeting.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
All right, your motion is to defer the approval of our funding proposal of $370,000 on FY 2201 until our next meeting, which is April 21st. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Sorry if I got wrong.
All right. Do you want? Is there a second on that motion? Anyone want to second it?
I'll second it.
That's Mr. Bartels. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is have a discussion about the motion. Okay. All right. And is that okay? So we'll start with Paul. Paul.
Thank you. So
Further comments and I guess discussion on the motion.
right, this
Okay.
is really a discussion on the motion, and well, it's really a question that hopefully Karis or Kristen can answer, because Lee Newman made a statement at last night's planning board that something to the effect of the warrant has already gone to the printer. You know, the warrant has to go out to town meeting members. Can we defer until April 21 in light of the fact that town meeting members are going to be receiving a warrant that has to have our article in it?
So the
The article's already in it.
The warrant has already gone to print.
already in it.
Articles are there. What would happen would be if we don't vote on the article or we don't vote to approve, we would withdraw it at the meeting.
Yeah.
Right, but
It happens all the time.
no, which we can vote it tonight and we can withdraw it at any time up to the night of town meeting. But my question is, if we don't vote it tonight, we don't even have a set number. Does the warrant article have a number of 370,000 in it?
It does.
It does. And so that's a motion that we're either going to vote on tonight or vote on the 21st. And that number is not going to change between now and the 21st, Mr. Chairman. That's a question for you.
Good. I mean, they get a minute, but it's routine. We'll get a little green sheet. It's going to get published. It's going to say that Article 33 or 32 has been amended. The number is now 250 instead of 370. I mean, it happens all the time, Paul. Right? It does.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mean to. So it's already in print. It's there, and so that's kind of left the barn. What we have to do is correct it by having our usual kind of one sheet correction that says something's been withdrawn or something's been modified or something's subject to an amendment. Right? I mean, it could be subject to an amendment. Move to amend, change the number.
I'm
Right.
going to take it on faith right now that provision in the CPA that says you can't amend what's already gone out from the CPC doesn't apply to amendments by the CPC.
Okay. So that's a good question. Well, you know what? We're stuck with it. All right. So we probably,
So
I'm sure that it's,
we might be voting on the 21st to either approve it or withdraw it.
right. Or the motion to defer could fail and we can vote tonight. So all right. So Paul, those are good. Any further comment from you, Paul,
No.
on the motion to amend?
No.
Excuse me, motion to defer.
Nope.
Okay. Okay. So I haven't spoken, so that if I can, so I think the appeal to the motion to defer, other than Paul, I mean, Paul has pointed out some potential pitfalls in it, but I think we're kind of already in pitfall land anyway, right? We've already, if there are pitfalls, if there are traps for the unwary, we are already in them, but we will find that out at a later date. But the appeal is what Mr. Barnes and Mr. Zambone, their point last week was, well, we want to know, because it's a legitimate question for this committee, and it's certainly a question that's going to come up on the floor of town meeting. What is the plan to finance construction? Because we're not writing a check for the whole thing. We've sent the message that we're not going to write a check for 50% of it. So what is the plan? And that's going to be a question that's going to be entertained by the floor. And I think we end up in that kind of Siegenthaler argument where it's right. Don't we end up in that spot? And that's kind of what we're trying to head off. Is we're trying to head off that issue so that we can provide some assurances on the floor of town meeting that there is a plan in place for funding. And so what Zambone and Barnes, not to put words in their mouth, were trying to see, we're pushing for last week was, hey, can we get some comfort level? Can we get some information about what the financing plan is? And what I've reported back to you is, there is nothing on the table at this point, but that I think it's okay to say this, in my conversation with our finance director, he thought deferring it until the 21st would make logical sense. So we're not, deferring is not up or down, deferring is just pushing it forward, and maybe we'll get some additional information or data. So that's my comment on it. And I welcome everybody else's comment. I see Bob Dermody's hand is raised. Mr. Dermody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You partly answered my question with your question, the hypothetical, if we vote this, and then go to town meeting, someone stands up, whomever, and says, all right, so you're asking us to spend this amount of money on design. How do we know this thing's ever going to get built? And that's a big concern. But we've been through this with almost any other project in town that gets designed under one cycle of town meeting and then funded for construction on the other. The major difference being, I think, of the size of the numbers. I think people are much more willing to go along on a hunch, for small numbers versus these are big numbers. So that's a concern of mine. How do we answer that as a committee? Do you have any thoughts on that, Mr. Chair?
Well, let me just correct this, which is that when we go into town meeting, when I go before the finance committee and I say this is for design funds, the question they always ask me is, well, where's the money for construction? And I have to break out our CPC spreadsheet. And I say, it's right here. We have it projected out in next year and we have it slotted, and here's where it's going to come from. So I actually do have an answer to that question.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
no, I think it's not our question. They're the one, it's their building. It's not our building. We're not proposing it be built. They should tell us where the money's coming from. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Lots of hands raised. We got Laura Dorfman up and then Paul Alpert, and then we'll go from there. Laura?
Thank you. So this is hindsight, but it's just for my own education. The way the request was presented, it was for both. It was for the design and the construction, actually for two different dates and time. And the summary was for both. And I wonder should they have been done separately? Because
no, if you look at the request, the amount requested is $1,364,000. That's their request in the first page of their application.
I'm looking at what I'm finding online, the project application form that I found on the website. It's amount requested, estimated total project cost, and then critical dates. But then in the project summary, it goes into the whole thing. And I don't know. I just wonder if it would have been more clear cut if these two things were treated separately.
All right,
And
I just want to clarify this, which is they are separate requests. There is a request this year for $1,475,130. That is the amount of the request. They informed us what the estimated total project cost was, which was $27,095,258. And what they do reveal in this request is that they will be asking us for additional sums in FY23 for construction. So there are going to be so they're just revealing to us what their plans are. But what is before us now is a request for design funds.
Okay.
All right, now Paul Alpert's hand is up, and then we're going to go to Rick Zamboni. Mr. Alpert.
Okay, so the issue is it seems to me that the issue is not where the proponents are going to inform us where the money's going to come from. They're working on that. They're discussing that. The issue is the finance committee. The issue is that the finance committee is indicating what I'm getting from the finance committee, what you guys are reporting to me, is that the finance committee isn't on board with even funding this project. No, I'm not talking about this vote. I'm talking about Emery Grover in full. They're not necessarily on board with the whole Emery Grover request. And that's the issue that's delaying our knowing what we need to know to be able to vote on whether we're going to spend $370,000 or commit $370,000. We have to get an answer really from the finance committee as to whether they're going to commit to doing the Emery Grover project that will include keeping the facade. And I have had a discussion with somebody on the finance committee who is actually in favor of tearing the building down and starting from scratch, which means nothing comes from CPC. And if that's where they wind up going, then we will have wasted $370,000. So.
Okay, we're getting a little bit, I'm a little concerned about us discussing too much about what we think the finance committee is thinking.
No, this is on the motion to defer, Peter. This is
Okay.
why I'm leaning towards, we have to defer until April 21 because we've got to get answers. And what I'm saying is we got to get answers from the finance committee.
Okay, maybe that's true. That's fine. But I also think we really need to get answers from the select board and from this, because the finance committee is an advisory committee. I mean, you're right. They have a lot of weight, but we need to know where is the money coming from, because so far we have committed $5.2 million on a construction bill of approximately $26 million, basically. So we need to know where the money is coming from. And if you say it's in part from the finance committee, makes sense. I say that it's from the select board as well, for the most part. Okay, Rick Zamboni. Question or comment?
That's a comment, Mr. Chair. I just to follow up, I think all of these comments that the committee is making are very appropriate. But my point is that we still don't have information. And that's why I'm proposing, just to kind of reiterate, the reason for deferring. We defer till the 21st. That gives us 2 more weeks, or it gives the other powers to be, whoever that might be, 2 more weeks to come back with what they're going to do with this article. Because it's not clear that all the parties are on the same page. So rather than us commit to either fund or commit to not fund, it's not really our call. If they decide to defer the project or they decide to do something else, whatever they decide to do, we need to give them at least enough time for them to, and one may argue that they've already had the time, but we need to give them at least 2 more weeks before we can vote on it, and then we have this discussion and we decide whether we want to go forward or not. All I'm proposing with the motion is just to defer action on the item until the 21st. And just one comment, my interpretation, and it's just mine, of the town meeting can't amend the dollar value that the CPC recommends. We haven't made a recommendation yet. So until we do so, I think we're perfectly legitimate in putting whatever number we want out there.
No, I guess what Paul's saying is, what can we amend our number? Can we, as a CPC, amend our number?
Yeah, but it's not an official number, Peter. That's my point.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So now I have a question for the committee, but I want to hear any further questions or comments. All right. So let me, Artie. Do you know approximately when Artie? Do you know approximately when it was that you arrived at the meeting?
7:30.
Okay, great. I just want the record to reflect that. That's all. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it seems perfectly appropriate. It's that we're deferring it. It's not saying no. It's saying that. I mean, we were kind of talking about this a little bit before anyway. Even I think even last week, I think there was some mention about just we need more information. So we don't have to vote on it yet. It's not hurting anything. It's giving us time to get information and see what's going on. So I perfectly understand deferring it till next time. It's
okay.
Perfectly appropriate.
All right. So now what I would like, and I could talk to Karis about this offline too, but I would like some information from you experienced hands as to what it is that you're looking for and who it is that I should get the information from. So Paul says Finance Committee. So does that mean I should reach out to the chair of the Finance Committee? I mean, I'm just trying to be practical here. I mean, I want to make sure I get it right.
If I may?
Yeah.
I think that from what you said, I think you need to reach out to possibly all three of somebody from the Finance Committee, which I guess is the chair, somebody from the Select Board, and somebody from the School Committee or the school superintendent.
Okay.
Find out where all three of them are going and saying, you know, look, we have a hard and fast deadline now of April 21. And if we don't have any answers, we can't commit $370,000 that we've got other projects lined up for.
Okay. So I would certainly feel uncomfortable dialing up the superintendent. So I will contact the school committee and I'll reach out to the chair of the Finance Committee, and the same with the Select Board. And then I'll also talk to the finance director, who's kind of in the middle of all, you know, it's all kind of spinning around him, right? He's going to every single meeting. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, just to remind everyone, Paul put together a great campaign ad just a few minutes ago, but we have, we're going to have 2 new school committee members, and we're going to have at least 1 new Select Board member, maybe 2, in a week. So there may be some reservation about taking action until after the elections to get the input from all of the new participants, because they're the ones that are going to have to be talking about it at town meeting. So I would just, again, I would almost even consider waiting until after town elections and you know who the players are to see if the process is changing at all after that.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's really helpful. All right. So post-election inquiry, maybe an addendum. Okay. Does anyone else have any other advice for me? No? I mean, I meant with respect to this, you know, article. I don't mean like life advice or anything like that. Okay. Existential stuff. Okay.
Peter, your question was, what should you be asking? Do you seriously, like, you said, who should I ask?
I think I know what I'm going to ask.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. All right. All right. So further debate on the motion to defer. All right. Hearing none. We'll I'll have a roll call vote on the motion to defer. Mr. Alpert.
Kristen, did you want to speak before we start voting?
Oh, do I have this right procedurally?
I just wanted to mention that Artie was not here for the reading of the motion.
Okay.
Wow,
The
you're-
reading. All right, here we go. We didn't read the, wait a minute. I didn't read.
Making of the motion. He was here
Making
for
the
the
motion.
making of the motion.
Okay, good. Let's have Mr. Zambone oh, actually, Kristen, do you have it written? Good. Would you read it for us?
Can do. So Mr. Zambone moved to defer the vote of application FY 22-01 until the next CPC meeting to be held on April 21st, 2021. Mr. Barnes seconded.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kristen. Okay. Now we've heard the motion again. We've all heard it. Let's have our roll call vote. Mr. Albert.
Aye.
Mr. Barnes.
Aye.
Mr. Crocker.
Aye.
Mr. Dermott.
Aye.
Ms. Dorfman.
Aye.
Mr. Gersel.
Aye.
Ms. Kirk.
Aye.
Mr. Zambone.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay. 2201. Let's dispose of. There we go. For now. All right, let's go on to 2202, preservation of Town of Needham marriage records. And what I would ask you to do, all right, so this is our request, as you know, for the amount of $25,000 for the preservation of Town of Needham marriage records beginning in 1919. And the proposal is to be transferred and paid for by CPA 2021 General Reserves. Let's see. Comments, questions on this proposal? Okay. I'm going to make a motion that is in our. I think it's it's the document that's labeled clean that was circulated right before the meeting. I move to recommend funding on the Needham Town Clerk's request for $25,000 for the preservation of Town of Needham marriage records under the historic designation, which will be transferred from the CPA 2021 General Reserves. It's my motion.
Paul Alpert, I second.
And Paul Alpert seconds it. Debate. Okay, discussion. Hearing none, let's have a vote. Mr. Alpert.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Barnes.
Aye.
Mr. Crocker.
Aye.
Mr. Dermody.
Aye.
Ms. Dorfman.
Aye.
Mr. Gersel.
Aye.
Ms. Kirk.
Aye.
Mr. Zambone.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, now we're on to 2204, Town Common, Historic Redesign and Beautification. We've heard this presentation several times. One thing that has changed since the beginning is that the amount of the request remains the same of $1,364,000, but the requested funding from CPA has been reduced to $1 million, with the balance to be paid from the free cash on through a special warrant article on the town side. Does anyone want to have a discussion regarding this article generally? This request generally? Okay.
Mr. Chair? Oh,
Yes.
just
Yes,
one
Mr.
thing
Gersel.
from reading from the draft proposal that it has select one in regards to either historic, open space, or recreation. I would actually suggest we go in that order, that it either comes from the historic bucket or the open space, and then recreation would be our third choice. That's just my opinion, because it does fall under all three of those categories. I would say those are the three in my preference I would take.
Okay. Does anyone have a comment regarding that? Okay,
Yep.
Mr. Dermody.
What does it say in the warrant article, please?
For clarity, these are coming out of general items, but we do have to declare a specific bucket. So you know the information that we gathered earlier about all the different funding sources and what designations it came from. most of those articles came from the general, but we had to declare a specific bucket that it comes out of when we do the vote. So that way we can record how funds are being distributed.
All right,
Thank
well,
you. May I, a quick follow-up, Mr. Chair?
yes.
Thank you. Is that in this committee, or what do we say to town meeting? That's basically what I want to know. Are they going to see that parentheses with 3 different names?
No.
Fine. Good.
No,
Thank you.
the bucket doesn't even show up in town meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have a comment regarding that? Yeah, Mr. Al.
I think we're confusing two things. What we're discussing is a designation because we have to declare that we have found this to be qualified by saying that it falls under one of these designations. The money's coming out of free cash. It's not coming out of a bucket. It's coming out of free cash. We're just stating how we've come to the conclusion that the funds, the project qualifies for CPC funding. And so I'm going to recommend that we go with historic because I think the common, of those 3 designations, I think the common is more historic than the other 2. So
okay.
making the motion, that's how I'm going to make the motion.
It's also
Okay, so
proposal.
all right, so now now I just want to give Chris an opportunity to respond because that's what it is. So Chris, you have to.
I would
choose
choose
the designation.
historic also, and I think Mr. Dermody, not to steal his thunder, it even says it in the write-up for the town common historic redesign and beautification. So historic would be the first selection that I would say of why we deemed it eligible for CPC.
Okay, anyone else? All right, I disagree. I think that it fits most neatly under recreation. It's not, I mean, it's less of a historic artifact than it is a place to recreate. And it doesn't, it doesn't shout out to me as an open space either. I mean, although we could get funding under open space, but that's kind of, I guess I'd like to have some input on that. I don't know that it matters much in the end. It's in a historic district. It is just, it also is described as the restoration of the historic town green. That's a good point. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, perhaps I've convinced myself. Okay, Artie, help me out. Help me, please.
Well, yeah, I'm going to help you out. I must admit, I mean that dirt under everything, I suppose, has been there for millennia, but nothing on top of it is being saved. I mean, it's going back to millennia. So I don't quite get how this one falls under historic, I must admit. As we're all saying, it all eventually comes from the same spot, but it does make some difference. Recreation, open space, that makes more sense. However we vote, whatever it is. I just don't get the historic part because we're creating something which 100 years from now could be historic, but what we're doing isn't historic right now.
Or I guess another way of Artie's putting it is, but back to my original point, which is I don't know that we're actually restoring an artifact. I mean, I guess we are, but we're turning it into something that's quite modern.
Yeah.
So it happened. Okay, but Joe Barnes, maybe you can help us.
I don't think I can help you, but I just a question that I think are we simply wordsmithing here?
Yeah.
It's not going to impact the dollar figure. I don't think we're going to get challenged at town meeting. So I would stay with the historic since it's in the descriptor.
Okay. All right. Rick Zimbo.
Mr. Chair, Joe really kind of stole my thunder, but I'm perfectly willing to do that. I mean, from my perspective, it doesn't matter. The money's coming out of free cash, as Paul said. Whether we call it, I mean, we can call it anything, but
Well, it has to fall under a qualifying category. All right.
Can I do something I've never done in my life and move a question?
Yeah.
second that.
I'm sorry that I feel like, when we're at that point, I feel that reflects really poorly on me. So I am sorry. Okay,
No,
I really am.
nobody
Not
has
moved
made a motion yet.
Okay, all right, I'm
Good.
sorry.
Good.
I love the
I
fact,
don't mean to, I really don't mean to waste your time. I'm sorry. I really am.
no, I love the fact that Bob Dermody moved the question.
No, I didn't, because there's no motion.
That's historic.
I think Karis is seconding the move to move the question.
No,
Okay.
it doesn't require a second. It doesn't require a second. It doesn't require a vote, does it?
I know.
Doesn't
All
require a
right,
vote. We have to vote on the move the question.
all
So
right, Karis.
I would just indicate the reason that it was under the historic is because that is a historic, it's designated a historic property by the Historic Commission.
Right.
And that's why it falls under that. But
Okay,
everything else everyone else is saying still stands.
all right. Why don't we keep it? Let's have it.
Okay, Chris.
Can we agree that let's make the motion that'll be historic?
It's right
I'm
here
willing-
in the
I'm willing
book.
to make the motion, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
if you're ready. So
Okay, that's-
I move on FY 22-04. I move to recommend funding on the Department of Public Works and the town manager's request for $1,364,000 for the town common historic redesign and beautification in the amount of $1 million under the historic designation, which will be transferred from CPA free cash and the balance to come from non-CPA sources.
Chris Gerstle seconds.
All right, Chris.
Well
All right,
played.
now, okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a vote. Alpert,
Aye.
Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
Dorfman,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Kirk,
Aye.
Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, now we're on to FY 2205 Fisher Street Trailhead Needham Rail Trail. That's a request for $15,000 for materials to build the Fisherhead Trailhead. Do we have any discussion regarding that application, 2205? Okay, hearing none. Would someone like to make a motion on our
I
FY
make a motion.
2205? Okay, Penny Kirk, and will be consistent with what the writing that we've made, that we circulated, the written motions, Penny? You
Yes.
say yes. Okay, good. And I'll read it, okay? Which is our Penny Kirk makes the following motion. To recommend funding, recommend funding on the town manager and Bay Colony Rail Trail Association's request for $15,000 for the Fisher Street Trailhead under the recreation designation, which will be transferred from the CPA 2021 General Reserves. Motion by Ms. Kirk. Do we have a second?
Chris Gerstle second.
Chris Gersel, second. Okay, discussion. Hearing none, let's have a vote. Mr. Albert,
Aye.
Mr. Barnes,
Aye.
Mr. Crocker.
Aye.
Mr. Dermody,
Aye.
Ms. Dorfman,
Aye.
Mr. Gersel,
Aye.
Ms. Kirk,
Aye.
Mr. Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, on to 2206, Article 28. This is the Park and Rec and Public Works request for $166,000 for the resurfacing of the synthetic track at DeFazio Field. Does anyone want to discuss the article generally? A request generally? Okay, then can we have a motion to recommend funding of the request?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, a question?
Yes.
Hold on.
Yeah, so there's a parenthetical at the end of what was circulated that says, "This I am confused about," and I don't know whether that was your parenthetical or
Wrong article.
parenthetical.
Wrong article, and that shouldn't be in there.
On
Okay,
28.
yeah, wrong article, and I shouldn't have been in there, but that's okay.
We're on
Oh, I'm
28.
sorry, I'm
29.
looking at the wrong one. I'm sorry.
I was moving
Don't
kind of
say.
fast. Okay. Thanks, Paul. We'll head up. We'll deal with that.
I apologize, Mr. Chair.
That's quite all right. Okay. Did we? I'm
So
sorry. Now, where are we at? Do we wait?
I'll
We
read
made-
the
Who's made the motion?
no,
I
no,
made the
no.
motion.
Okay,
Chris has made the motion. Now we need a second.
second.
Paul Albert. Discussion. Hearing none. Let's have a roll call vote. Mr. Albert.
Aye.
Mr. Barnes.
Aye.
Mr. Crocker,
Aye.
Mr. Derby,
Aye.
Ms. Dorfman,
Aye.
Mr. Gersel,
Aye.
Ms. Kirk,
Aye.
Mr. Zambone,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, on to the item that Mr. Chair is confused about. Article 29 FY 2207. This is for a request for $45,000 for the design of funding for McLeod Field renovation. I know someone who has a question. Does anyone have a question about the request? Okay, so my question about the request is it, we have a clause in there that says the balance from, actually there's a typo, but it's the balance from non-CPA sources. So now this gets back to the issue of $45,000 and the $3,000 designed for the 48-inch pipe. And so they're requesting $45,000, correct?
From CPC, yes.
But I feel like the representations that we've gotten from Park and Rec it's not going to include design. That $45,000 will not be spent on design of the pipe.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Okay, so then if that's the case, then I don't know that we need the clause and the balance from non-CPA sources, correct?
Doesn't seem like we do.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
agree with you. I agree with you. I believe that it's not appropriate because if they're requesting 45,000 and we're funding 45,000, then there's no balance to come from other sources.
Right. Okay, so then what I would do is, so then we could amend that as well as the parent, the bracketed statement. So we don't need to amend it, but that would be how the motion would read.
Just a period after the word reserve.
After it reserves. Okay. All right. So then with that, Mr. Barnes, Joe?
Will that be reflected in the warrant town meeting? We will have to amend the warrant article to remove that part of the language?
That I'm turning now to Karis.
No, so the warrant does have the non-CPA items also in it. And that's not under the jurisdiction of the CPC. So that wouldn't be part of your motion, but it's not something that would be taken out of the article. Because the article does include the town's contribution of $3,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so would someone like to make the motion on FY 2207?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I recommend funding on the Public Works and Park and Recreation request for $45,000 for the McLeod Field renovation design under the recreation designation, which will be transferred from the CTA 2021 general reserves.
Okay, the motion is made by Artie Crocker. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Penny Kirk seconds. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll have a vote. Alpert.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
Crocker.
Aye.
Dermody.
Aye.
Dorfman.
Aye.
Gersel.
Aye.
Kirk.
Aye.
Zambone.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, now we're on to 2208, and that is the Conservation Department's request for $6,000 for design funds for trail identification and professional design services. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding that application? You know what I realized is, can I make an omnibus comment, because the agenda says that I'm supposed to give you a report on the select board and the finance committee on each one of these articles. So, so I would say that they were supportive of all of them and supportive of the positions that we took with respect to funding on each one of those. And so that brings you all the way forward. Okay, in summary fashion. And Rick really filled us in a lot on what the sense of the finance committee was. So there was actually very little pushback or very little questioning. They thought that we took a very deliberative approach with respect to the funding of each and every one of these articles. So they were supportive. Okay.
Peter,
yes.
Are you saying that you're saying the finance committee was in supportive of the Emery Grover building?
Oh,
Is that what you're saying now?
I think that they were generally supportive with our deliberative approach, and they were kind of also kind of thinking about that. I mean, they raised all those questions, which was this building has to be dealt with in a holistic. They used a lot of words like holistic and global, but there was no criticism about our approach on any of these articles. And but I think I made it clear before the finance committee that we had not yet heard back at that point about the question of the balance of the design funds for Emery Grover, or we had not heard anything with respect to the mechanism for construction financing.
I just wanted to clarify, because I mean, yeah, there's no question that they are very appreciative of what you're bringing to them and how we were dealing with it as a committee. But I certainly did not get the sense that there was this general support of the Emery Grover project.
No,
no majority coming out of that I heard.
No, I agree with you. Okay, so in fact, you were present, and I just want to, if you want to clarify anything that I've said, please feel free to do that. But and I don't want to confuse you.
No, it's just that article. That's all.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. Okay. All right. So now we're back to trail identification for professional design services. No one has any comments. Can we have a motion to recommend funding for the trail design?
So moved.
Okay, Bob Dermody. And do you have that in front of you? Do you want me to read it, or it's up to you?
I will. Oh, wait, Kristen's got her hand up. I probably did something wrong.
All right, Kristen.
So choose your own adventure for the design from where the funding's coming from. So the motion will need to be read.
Then I humbly request the chair read it.
Okay. All right. So then so we have to select one though, open space or recreation. Okay. So it seems to me that this falls pretty well. It falls neatly under each one.
I suggest recreation.
Okay, there you go. So you just recreation. And is that true, Chris? You suggest open space?
Either or.
Okay, let's go with recreation. Okay, I move to recommend funding on the Conservation Department's request for $6,000 for the trail identification professional design services under recreation designation transferred from the CPA 2021 general reserves. All right, that's the motion of Mr. Dermody. You have a second?
Second, Chris Gerstle.
Okay, you guys are quite a team. Discussion.
We practiced earlier.
Really good. You're ready for a touchdown dance. Okay, discussion. Laura.
Yes, just a quick question. Did we say we were going to put this under what did we say, open space or recreation?
Recreation.
Yeah, because it specifically says trails in the recreational bucket. That's all. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, good. Great. Good job.
We got something right.
When a blind squirrel finds a nut.
Helpful. That's good. Okay. Okay.
You might want to note that, Kristen. We got something right.
All right, good. Thanks.
Oh, you're freezing up, Peter.
Laura. All right. So now,
You're frozen, Mr. Chairman. We can't hear you.
We have a new bingo game. When will Peter freeze? And
I like the robotic voice that he has.
Yeah, I guess they 7. So.
Oh. He's back.
Well, he said he had a method last time.
How about now?
We hear you. We just don't see you.
How about now?
Yep.
Can you see
we
me?
hear the dog.
Yeah.
I see you.
You're not moving. You're very still.
I'm not moving. I'm looking fine.
It's a blank
I
screen.
can see myself.
You sound different.
You're
Now
back.
you're back.
Hey.
Talk to us, Peter.
Yeah, talk quickly.
It's frozen again.
Uh-oh.
Just froze again.
And now it's his other face.
His neck must hurt.
I think he's doing some
No.
stop motion animation on
Peter,
it.
the first side was your better side.
It's like a mugshot. Well, he did one
Okay.
way and then he did the other way.
We'll see him
I'm
down the
really
post
sorry.
office tomorrow.
There he is. Oh,
There's back.
Oh.
quick, someone get him a new dial-up connection from his phone line.
I don't know. That costs an extra $10 a month.
Aye. This isn't working, Peter. I
What?
think-
We're already
I
out of
can't
vote.
see you.
What are we voting on?
It's not? I could,
I think you have
okay,
to
hold on,
reboot, Peter.
hold on, hold on.
You're
We're getting
frozen.
every other word out of you, Peter.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold on. Hold on.
Other word.
Can we vote for design funds for Peter's new computer?
Yes. There he is. He's live action now.
All right. We all
Okay.
resigned while you were out.
Karis, don't we have administration funds to handle things like this? I mean, there's $80,000. I don't know if we spend it, but maybe
Wow.
we could buy Peter a
Give
new
it to
computer.
Peter.
I was just thinking that myself, actually.
I'm not
Hold
sure
on.
the finance committee would approve it, Rick.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to delay this whole thing for 2 weeks because whenever there's a problem, we're supposed to stop the Zoom calls and take it up next time.
I think if
All
it
right.
comes to that, Peter can call in.
All right, you guys can't see me?
Now we
Yeah,
can.
we
Now
can
we
now.
And you're
Don't move
waving.
too quickly.
Okay. All right, so let's go through the vote. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning. Ms. Alpert,
Aye.
Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
Dorfman,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Kirk.
Up. Crystal,
Aye.
put your hand up. We did something wrong.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not voting until I hear from
Don't keep
Krista.
stretching.
All right, Zimbone. Rick, Zimbone.
Are we okay? Because I vote aye. Okay.
Okay, and the chair votes aye. Okay. All right, sorry about that. 2210 is town reservoir sediment removal. Okay. And this was an original request for $262,000. $175,000 has been the amount that we have proposed funding, and the $87,000 balance is going to be funded through the town through free cash, separate warrant article. Does anyone have questions regarding 2210?
You just said free cash and it reads that it's from open space reserve.
I meant free cash on, I said the town free cash. We on the town budget on free cash. I think that's it. So the balance, $87,000, would be funded through a separate warrant article
Okay.
and special town.
Yeah, but for our purposes, the rest is just coming from non-CPA sources.
Correct. That's correct. Okay.
So does
All
this
right.
have to be rewritten, Peter, the way it
No,
reads?
it's written. No, it's written fine.
Okay.
Because what
Okay.
we're doing is here. Let me explain this to you, which is that my reference to free cash was only to on the town side of the budget. Okay, not free cash on our account on CPA. Okay, but what Paul pointed out correctly was it doesn't matter. $87,000 is coming from a different source from a different part of the budget that we don't have any control over. So we're
So
fine.
The total amount requested, that's fine, it says 262. We don't have to worry about what's coming from us and what's coming from the town.
Well, we already did know. We actually are approving $175,000 of it with the balance.
So it's a little different from the proposal is all I'm saying, from the request. The
Right.
request says 262.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, that's correct. Okay, so, all right, discussion. Questions? Okay, let's have a motion.
Sure. I move to recommend funding on the Public Works request for $262,000 for the town reservoir sediment removal design in the amount of $175,000 under the open space designation to be transferred from the open space reserve and the balance to come from non-CPA sources.
Second.
Second by Art. So the motion was made by Paul Albert, second by Artie Crocker. Discussion. Okay, hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Albert,
Aye.
Mr. Barnes,
Aye.
Mr. Crocker,
Aye.
Mr. Dermody,
Aye.
Ms. Dorfman,
Aye.
Mr. Purcell,
Aye.
Ms. Kirk,
Aye.
Mr. Zambone,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay. That brings us to basically a group of finance-related articles, beginning with FY 2212, and that is a increase the affordable housing bucket contribution from 11% to 22%. Questions or comments regarding that issue?
I have a question. Was this
Sure.
something that was brought before the Finance Committee as well as the other articles?
Yes.
And they were supportive of this as well?
Artie?
Very supportive.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
I have a question, I believe, for Karis. I'm just noticing that we have article numbers for 1 through 7, which I guess are the warrant article numbers. And then you stop giving us warrant article numbers beyond 7. Are those going in numerical order? Will the ones that we just voted on, 08 be Article 30 and 10 is going to be Article 31, etc.?
Yes, I can read through the article. Hold on one second. Actually, if you just give me one moment, I want to make sure I'm looking at the most recent draft of the warrant, the one that we did print, because I know they had removed an article, not in ours, but that it may have had a chain effect. Hold on one second.
In my defense, I want you to know that I upgraded our internet in this household.
Sure you did.
When?
And
What was the?
I have
That's an upgrade.
I have a premium package, but I have a history of having heated discussions with Comcast. Let's put it that
I hope you saved the receipt. Hope you saved the receipt for that upgrade.
way.
Meaning you actually
Yeah.
got through to someone in
Buyer
Comcast?
beware.
Peter, are you currently in the same room as your router?
No, I'm not.
Okay, that may be your problem, because I've got that problem in my house.
Yeah.
It was explained to me that in old houses, the way the walls were built back in the day before internet, getting from the router to whatever other room you're in, you've got these walls that are blocking the signal. If you have software, and actually I think Comcast has it on their website, where you can check the speed
Yeah,
of what you've got, you'll find that in the room where the router is, you're actually getting the speed that you're paying Comcast for. But elsewhere in the house, you're greatly reduced in the speed.
Yeah.
It may be your problem.
Peter, all you have to do if you're too far away from the router and the signal strength is an issue, all you have to do is put a repeater essentially halfway between you and the router. Then that'll re-amplify the signal back up to where you are. Something like that.
Yeah.
A repeater?
A repeater, yes, a repeater.
A repeater, yes.
Repeater?
It's also called a booster. I have a booster in my house for that.
And I do in mine too.
If you
Is
notice,
this all being recorded right now?
Okay, all right, good.
Really?
All right, good. That's fine. Okay, so let's, all right, so go ahead, Karen.
we were giving Karis time.
They were. So to answer Peter's
This
question.
is called vamping.
The trail identification project is Article 30. The reservoir sediment project is Article 31. The general funding article that we have is Article 32. And Article 33 is a supplemental article appropriating a small delta of funds to the community housing bucket and the open space bucket based on some increase in revenue from last year.
Okay, so then we're in this 11% to 22%, the increase in the community housing bucket. Community would fall under Article 32, okay? All right, so Penny, you had a question.
No, I just wanted to make a motion, but I'm ahead of myself.
All right, so I think we parsed this up a little bit, but we could combine article, the two warrant, we could actually have one financial warrant article. I guess it doesn't really matter. We can have a separate vote on the 11% to 22%. And then I think what I would like to do is do a vote that just approves the financial warrant article, which allocates our estimated 2022 revenues in the different buckets, including open space and community preservation, annual reserve. But
Mr. Chair,
yes,
I move to recommend that the annual contribution to the Community Housing Reserve be increased this year from 11% to 22% for this current fiscal year.
okay. All right, Mr. Zamboni makes the motion, and Penny Kirk seconds it. Any discussion? Paul out.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that what we're voting on is something that is not a warrant article.
That's correct.
It's just a vote internally to the CPC. Thank you.
Correct. Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none. Let's have a vote. Paul Alpert.
Aye.
Joe Barnes.
Aye.
Artie Crocker.
Aye.
Bob Dermody.
Aye.
Laura Dorfman.
I,
Chris Gersel.
Aye.
Penny Kirk.
Aye.
Rick Simbo.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. All right, the two remaining articles are resolutions rather, are the financial articles that will appear at Articles 32 and 33, respectively, at town warrant, on the town warrant. We discussed Article 32 last week, and those numbers were part of the presentation that I made. And this is how the numbers will be presented to town meeting. And you'll see that Community Housing Reserve reflects an allocation, an appropriation for future use of reflecting 22% of our estimated 2022 community preservation funding revenues. So, questions about this? All of this has been covered last week, but any additional questions? Okay, can we have a motion? Would anyone like to make the motion? I'll make the motion. I'll recommend that pursuant to MGL Chapter 44B, the estimated FY 2022 Community Preservation Fund revenues be appropriated or set aside for future appropriations as drafted in our proposed resolutions.
Second.
And second by Paul Alpert. Discussion. Hearing none, let's have a vote. Paul Alpert.
Aye.
Joe Barnes.
Aye.
Artie Crocker.
Aye.
Bob Dermody.
Aye.
Laura Dorfman.
I,
Chris Gersel.
Aye.
Penny Kirk.
Aye.
Rick Zamboni.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The final resolution is concerns kind of our true up. And I believe that I was guessing a little bit. This has to do with our 2020 Community Preservation Reserve funds, right? I think it was. Okay. Basically, we received more money in than we had estimated. And in order to bring the allocation up to the minimum of 10%, we need to appropriate the sum of $11,935 to each of the reserve accounts. And what we're going to do is appropriate that sum only to two of them, community housing and to open space, because $11,935 would have been contributed directly to the debt servicing amount that was appropriated during that fiscal year. Okay. All right. So this is basically the true up motion, and I will, any discussion regarding that or questions regarding that? No. All right, I'll make the motion. To recommend that pursuant to MGL Chapter 44B, the sum of $11,935 be set aside for future appropriation to the Community Housing Reserve, and the sum of $11,935 be set aside for future appropriation to the Open Space Reserve, and that to meet this appropriation, that $23,870 be transferred from CPA free cash. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Paul Albert makes a second. All right, discussion. Hearing none, we'll have a vote. Mr. Albert.
Aye.
Mr. Barnes.
All right.
Mr. Crocker,
Aye.
Mr. Dermody,
Aye.
Ms. Dorfman,
Aye.
Mr. Gersel,
Aye.
Ms. Kirk.
Yes.
Thank you.
One in every crowd.
Well played.
Nice job, Penny. Mr. Zimbo.
Aye.
Okay, the chair votes aye. Are there any other issues that we could not reasonably anticipate within the last, by posting in the agenda prior to 48 hours? All right,
Not-
Mr. Zambone. Oh, wait a minute, and we have Laura Dorfman. Okay, Laura Dorfman.
I don't know if it falls under this category. Perhaps I'm too quick with this question, but on the website with Walker Pond, it's still showing it as eligible. What do we do? How do we handle that, Karis? Like,
No, it's been withdrawn.
it's been
And
withdrawn. So,
it's being funded from the general fund.
right. So does it have to come down off the website if someone were to go look and see it?
We can certainly take it down or indicate that it was voted as ineligible, but we usually just post our applications on the website. We don't usually put the opinion on there whether or not they're eligible.
Because
We also-
it is on there. All of them are listed as either eligible or not eligible.
Okay.
And this one's still showing as eligible. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a big deal or not. I don't know how many people go to the website, but if we were to go to meeting and someone said, well, I saw on the website Walker Pond and where is it? Just a comment.
We can
That's a good
update
question. Someone will say, where is it? Okay, good question. All right, let's get that to our webmaster and okay, Rick Zambone.
Mr. Chair, I might have missed this, but have you designated presentation by which member on which article?
We're gonna deal with that right now.
Oh,
That was my next item.
it wasn't on the agenda. That's why I'm
I
asking.
know that, but that's okay. It's close enough. I mean, because it falls within the ambit of each of the warrant articles. So we're okay. I mean, each of the, here's my, each article, each has has a liaison, either one or two liaisons. So if there's a single liaison, that individual is responsible for preparing a presentation that's going to be videotaped and uploaded by the 26th, apparently. And it's going to be on behalf of the CPC. So got some experienced people on board. And so everybody, I think, has seen this in action. So the tradition has been not to, no one's looking over your work. The responsibility is for you individually to make the presentation. I don't think that, and I usually allow it, hold on, I usually allow if there are more than one liaisons, then I do allow the team, if you will, to internally select the person that they would like to make the presentation. Because there are a lot of factors to be considered in connection with that, including just, time, experience, how fast you are with the facts, and how comfortable you feel making public presentations. So with that, I mean, those are kind of my general comments. Remember, you're essentially becoming the proponent. You're the advocate for that. Okay, and Karis, go ahead.
I want to add to this, since we are in Zoom land and we can do things slightly differently. I have talked to the town manager, and if you wanted to have the proponent as part of your presentation, what she has done is a split screen between our liaison and the proponent to jointly present. That is an option, but she did ask if we did it with like a split screen, so it's just clear. And then I will also indicate, while Emery Grover was tabled, just as part of this conversation, it is possible that if Emery Grover moves forward, it could also be a live presentation as opposed to a recorded presentation if we don't hit those deadlines as we talked. So that's just another factor to consider.
Okay, so who's going to help us out if you want to do a split screen? Because that could be kind of fun, but is that, who's got how am I supposed, I know how to do the presentation on my own. Somebody.
Someone
gonna help me
younger
out.
than us is the answer, I'm
I was looking
guessing.
at Kristen, but she can't see me making eyes.
Kristen can help me. Kristen can help. No.
Anything you need, Mr. Chair.
Okay, good. All right, great. Okay, hand raised, Bob Derby.
Karis, could you elaborate on what you mean by live presentation?
A traditional town meeting presentation where you stand on, it's normally the floor, but it will be the parking lot, and delivering a verbal presentation. So
Is that available for all of these or just the Emery Grover?
just the Emery Grover, because there may not be votes by all the committees before the deadline for when we need to upload presentations.
That's why. Okay, thank you.
Oh, I do want to make a note for the record. Sorry about this, which is, so I have two articles, 2202, Preservation of the Town of Needham Marriage Records, and 2208, Trail Identification Professional Design Services. And then the chair usually handles the finance articles. But I think that there's nothing controversial, if you will, in the finance articles, other than the doubling of the reserve account allocation for community housing, and that was handled by a special team, if you will, working group, and then and with Rick really carrying the I don't want to undercut anyone else's contribution. I know you all worked hard on it in an accelerated format, but Rick put a lot of time into it. And I also am cognizant of the fact that I may be perceived as somebody who's a housing advocate in light of the long history that I have as a housing commissioner. And we have a tradition on the committee of not having the stakeholders of interest groups make proposals on behalf of those stakeholders. And so I just really I think it's best for me not to make the finance article presentation. And if you will, I was going to propose that Rick Zambone do it, because as I said, the guts of it really has to do with the community housing bucket.
I second that motion.
Okay, so there's not really a motion, but that's good. I'll like feedback. And then Joe Barnes.
Along those same lines, Mr. Chair, I mean, I could be viewed as a homer as well, and having a vested interest here, which is not necessarily the case, but I may defer to my esteemed colleague, Bob, if he wants to do it rather than me.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and you're probably right. I thought at some point, doesn't that kind of time out? If you know what I mean? It's like, well, how many years away from your prior job do you have to be before you're, but I think you're right. I think that people would probably.
I'm happy to do it, Joe.
All right, so that would be Bob. So he is on Emery
Yeah, I have no problem doing that article. I assume you're going to be doing the last article, though?
You want me to do the true up?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the true up. No problem. That's a good one.
And Karis, when might be a deadline for me to think about deciding whether I'm going to do this taped or live?
I think if we're going to be meeting again, which it sounds like we are on the 21st, I think we will know likely on that date what direction this is going in.
Okay.
All right. So does everybody have a sense of how? Well, actually, let's run through this just to do it a quick sense of where we're going. So on our town common historic redesign and beautification. Hold on. All right. The reason why I can't remember this, by the way, is because I wasn't at the meeting when we had the designations. So
Chris,
I had.
This is Bob
and I.
Chris and Bob.
Okay. All right. So that's Dermody and Gersel.
I'm a very shy person. I don't like public speaking. So Bob, if you want to do it. I'm kidding. I would gladly do it.
All right, I walked right into that one.
All right, that's a good one. All right,
I will gladly do that one.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, good. So we got this. Let's keep going then. Fisher Trailhead.
I'll do that.
Good, Artie. The DeFazio Field, except, and that's Paul and Penny. Is that right? Paul.
No, it's Paul. It's Paul and me. It's
Paul,
up to you,
Laura,
Paul.
okay, which one?
Laura, can
Whatever
you
you
do it?
want.
Because I have a feeling I'm going to be doing well, correct me if
Yeah,
I'm
do that sediment. Yeah,
but
Laura, you
I'm
can do
feeling that I'm going to be the one doing the
Okay.
town walk.
I'll do it, of course.
Great.
Yep.
McLeod.
The sediment Alpert.
Okay, so we have Paul Alpert on the sediment. Okay.
Any,
now
unless
let-
you want to do it.
That's okay.
Someone,
Okay.
someone will give me some guidance, I'm guessing.
All right,
I've
so
never
now
done
it's
this before.
Karen, I do believe that it makes sense on the sediment for Tony to be there on the split screen. So will somebody contact me to set up doing that? And you know, I have not done a presentation on Zoom, so I don't even know who to contact or what to do. So you'll set that up for me?
Yeah, there's a whole list of
Yeah.
directions, and I'll probably have to help Tony anyways, so.
Yeah.
Okay, McLeod Field. Who's going to be making the presentation?
Yeah, I'll be doing that.
All right, so already you have two.
Alrighty.
Okay. All right, so let's take it from the top. Emery Grover's Dermody, Marriage Records, Pingator, Gersel's got Historic Redesign, Fisher Street Trailhead is Crocker, Dorfman's got DeFazio Field, already Crocker again has got McLeod Field, Pingator's got Trail ID, Town Reservoir Sediment, Paul Alpert, and then the finance article is Ricks and Bone, and the True Up finance article is Pingator.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I think last year you agreed to do any type of in-person responses at town meeting. The presentations would be made video-wise by liaisons, but anything that came up at town meeting, you handle the questions. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I second that motion again.
All right. I can handle that as a general rule. Yes, that's fine.
That was more of a question than, it wasn't a request as much of a question that if that was going to be the same process as last year.
Trying to remember how we arrived at that. It was maybe it had to do with safety issues. I can't remember.
Or just your expertise, Peter.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You were speaking as one voice for all of us.
Okay. All right. That's fine. So, and I think too, I know what it was, because usually in the TTBC, the time before COVID, we would have a table, and we would, and so we would actually have the question, and then we would huddle, and then someone would pop up and answer. Okay. So what we'll do, but instead we got rid of that, and we just say, all right, Peter, you just do the best you can and answer the question. And I guess we could follow that, right?
We got your back, Peter. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
Yep.
Noted. Sure.
Are we gonna have a section set aside so that we will all be near each other when the CPC articles are being presented? So, you know, like if a question comes up on the sediment, you know, Peter, hopefully you and I could just kind of, you know, catch each other's eye and point at each other and go, no, you handle it. No, you handle it.
That's right. That's right. So we'll be set up that way, right, Karis? Are we similar? Are we going to be?
It will be the same.
Well-
So I just want to understand. So Peter, you're going to be respond to any questions that might come up at town meeting.
I'll be on point. I'll be on the tip of the spear.
You're our point guard.
But we'll all be together. So if Peter wants to look to the liaison and say, can you really answer that better than I can? We'll be near each other too.
And Mr. Chair, if I may ask Karis another question.
Sure.
Not to seem like I'm nervous about doing the Emery Grover presentation. However, I'd like all of my colleagues here's opinion. I would suggest that is a warrant article that warrants having a split screen, having another proponent with me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Are you gonna have dueling architects, or where are you gonna go with that? Architect, project manager, architect, superintendent. Like, you got a lot of ways to go there.
So if you can provide some offline advice on how to make that happen, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks. I kind of have
Okay.
who I kind of have picked out who I want. I just want to know how I make that happen.
Okay. Any other questions regarding our presentations? Okay. Any other comment? Yes, Joe.
Question about the agenda for the 21st. Are we focusing entirely on Emery Grover, or solely on Emery Grover, I should say? Yes?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're teed up on everything except for Emery Grover. It could be a 15-minute meeting.
Oh, don't say that.
Emery Grover? No. Not on
I'm
your,
counting on it.
Kiss of death.
Don't jinx it. Yep.
Okay, so, well, all right, so our next meeting is April 21st, and let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I so move.
Okay, Artie Crocker makes a motion to adjourn, seconded by Penny Kirk. Roll call vote. Paul Alpert,
aye.
Joe Barnes,
Aye.
Artie Crocker,
Aye.
Bob Dermody,
I.
Laura Dorfman,
Aye.
Chris Gersel,
Aye.
Penny Kirk.
Aye. Artie, I love your background, but your arms keep missing.
No.
I feel like Artie must be roommates with Steve Rosenstock, don't you? Anyway,
And Penny, I have a question for you.
Wait, there's an odd couple.
Penny,
Yeah.
Chair, I vote aye to